The relevance of this book, where it comes at a time where we are at a crossroad, where artificial intelligence, we're asking ourselves, is it the new way forward? Do you know that any one book that used to be with Steve Jobs all the time was Autobiography of a Yogi? And that book dealt with a person's journey within, okay? And now today, almost 75 years later, we have YOGAi. And we have Sunil, who's brought up this topic and who's going to, shed some light about what he feels about the book. So I'm going to read out verbatim a short introduction on him. Sunil weaves through Vedic wisdom with the innovations of tomorrow in order to unravel the mysteries of the human experience. He stands at an intersection of spirituality, technology, and design. Sunil has forged a lot of profound connections with some very esteemed minds in spirituality and science. They include luminaries like Dr. Karan Singh, Irvin Laszlo, and Satish Kumar. He's been inspired by the interesting and pioneering work of the Western Vedantic scholars, and he has delved into the depths of their interdisciplinary thought. He has a company which he founded in 2002 called Idea Farms, and it is a full-service design in tech advisory and consulting firm. He has a professional degree in engineering, industrial design, and law from premier institutes in India. And he has also authored a book before this called The First Principle. A big round of applause for Sunil Malhotra. I would like to ask YOGAi to please give him a small token of appreciation, some flowers from our side. Captain? In conversation with Mr. Malhotra is Prithvi Rohan Kapur, a very warm welcome Prithvi, and he's a young lawyer. His experience includes numerous international arbitrations in sectors including oil and gas, telecommunications, infrastructure, construction, mining, and he has spent a better part of his life in London and has just come back to India a few years ago. He has also regularly, he holds degrees in laws and communication from the University of Delhi and a master's degree from the University of Oxford, where he was an OSCI scholar. At Oxford, he was awarded the Winter Williams Prize by the Faculty of Law and the Traps exhibition by Lincoln College. I would like you to give a big round of applause and welcome him to the class. Can I please request Padmini ji to come up and give him a little bouquet. A big round of applause for him.
Ask my wife to hold on to this thing.
Oh, please come up front.
I never get her flowers. We should have you go off.
So, Sunil, when I came for your book launch, and I was listening to Dr. Karan Singh talk about the book, okay? So he said that you had spent almost 2 years talking to each other every Monday. and covering various topics, and it was him who urged you on to write this book. Okay. So what was the thought process which made you start penning down things and finally come to this, and the culmination being this book? If you could just take us through that journey.
चेक ऐसे बोलते हैं ना पहले. I'm not used to using a mic. I guess everyone is to learn. So first of all, I have to thank all of you for making the time to come to this event. Thank you, Vasant, Vineeta, everybody here at Office Bearers, for showcasing this book. Let's put it that way. You're showcasing it, and Vineeta has gone and said all kinds of things that put so much pressure on me that I don't know if I'll be able to live up to even half of what she said. So just to come back to the question, yes, I spent a lot of time. I think it's grace more than anything else that someone like me gets the opportunity to sit with someone like Dr. Karan Singh on almost a weekly basis. Every Monday we sit together. I think we are both lonely people, Karan Singh and I, so we like each other's company. So that's one way to look at it. But I think what really happened was that I told him that I'm looking to write a book like this, Yoga and AI. And how we started meeting was because he was very fascinated by the idea of AI. Coming from where he comes, coming from an era where there was no technology whatsoever, right? So for him, one of the questions he asked me was, what is artificial intelligence? And one of the answers I gave to him was, sir, unlike what people think, artificial intelligence is not about technology. It's about something way beyond technology. And so I think that got him a little interested that, okay, this guy is an interesting fellow, let's take this forward. And my selfish interest was that being the kind of person that he was, with the kind of has been in political life for such a long time, the kind of wisdom that he embodies, and the fact that if I'm looking at anything in the space of yoga and spirituality, I don't think I could have found anybody else to get advice from or to get validation from when I was trying to write this. So to answer your question, I think you might take it that I'm kind of joking, but yoga and AI together intrigued me as much as it is intriguing. Probably now I realize that it's intriguing other people much more than it intrigued me. Because these are completely opposite. One is 5,000 odd years old, one is just emerging. One is about mysticism, or has this thing about mysticism. The other is about, evidence-based scientific methodology. So science and mysticism, or spirituality, whatever we may call it. And so I thought that this would be a very interesting thing to bring together. This is when I started thinking about it. So when I had already got to a certain point and Karan Singh ji and I started discussing it, the only thing he kept challenging me, which he does even today, if you remember, even at the launch he spoke about it. He said, I don't see the connection between yoga and AI. Even after having spoken with you and having had these interactions all these years, I still don't see what is the connection between yoga and AI. And my answer to him is my answer to you as well. The connection between yoga and AI is there, but you have to find it yourself. Somebody can't give it to you. Because both yoga and AI intersect only at one organic entity, and that is the human being. It doesn't intersect in a tree, it doesn't intersect in any animal, it intersects only in the conscious human being. And therefore, you will find the connection, that I promise. Whether you buy the book, read the book or not, you will definitely find the connection. This book will only point you in a few directions and start making you, instead of looking for answers, it will point you towards the questions that you really need to grapple with, is what I'm hoping. And that's been my hope. I don't know, have I answered? Does that make sense?
Yes, you have, but I don't mean to put you on the spot. But if I can ask, At your human level, where did you think it intersected?
So if you look at what's been happening, I think I need to explain. I think many people in the audience, it's a very august, very experienced audience, but I'll still revalidate this. There's this word called exponential. Many of us don't understand the implications of exponential. We understand exponential to some extent intellectually. Some of us think it's a mathematical thing, but it's very simple. Linear is the opposite of exponential. What we know is linear. That means so I often give this example that if I were to ask somebody to walk from back here in that direction, in 30 steps that you take one by one, where do you think you will be? And generally the answer is that I will be probably close to where the diagram, maybe in 20 steps I'll get there. Exponential is actually about doubling steps. So you take the first step as one step, the second step you take as 2 steps, the third you take as 4 steps, and then it becomes 8, and then becomes 16. Up to there, it looks more or less linear. It doesn't look very different from linear. But there's this gentleman called Gordon Moore who talked about Moore's law. I won't get there, go to all that. But what you realize is that if you took 15 steps, doubling steps starting from where I started with the linear steps, you would actually be 26 times around the earth in 30 steps. So that's the kind of distance that you will cover if it is doubling steps. So what tends to happen with exponentiality is that it looks very deceptively linear up to a certain point, and then the next doubling step starts pushing the curve up, and then it just goes through the roof. And we have been facing this as far as technology. All of us must be sensing this, right? In the last 10 years or so, we've hit that curve that's moving up. So every year, you'll find technological progress going at a speed that the human mind cannot keep up with. And when that happens, my insight has been, and my research has shown, that you get terribly anxious. You become very fearful. Because you just can't understand what's going on. You just can't figure out how do I control what's going on outside. And it will be I'm doing a little digression, but see, if you look at it, I mean, all of us know this, and if you've done even a little bit of intellectual understanding of the spiritual systems, what the spiritual systems, especially Vedanta, etc., teach us is that we are designed as organic beings. All biological beings are designed to respond to external stimulus. Whether it's a tree, whether it's an animal or a human being, we are designed biologically to respond only to external stimulus. So, हम लोग बात करते हैं ना 5 senses, right? So only the 5 senses are there. That's why if it's anything that goes beyond the 5 senses, which are processed basically by the mind, you call it the 6th sense. And if I ask anybody to explain the 6th sense, nobody knows how to explain it, because it goes beyond the mind. Now let's come back to the point I was trying to make, that when COVID happened, we had all the technology in the world moving at an exponential rate, giving everybody, especially the younger generation, everything that they were asking their workplaces for. I want to stay home, I don't want to be stuck in traffic, I want to do work from home, etc. They really enjoyed the first 1 year of doing that. And after that, everybody was lost. The bosses didn't know what they were going to do. Should we call everybody back? They were putting the blame on the governments. Nobody could figure out as to why should we call these people back. These youngsters or employees said, why should we come back when we're getting better productivity from home? So while technology is supposed to be something that can actually take you forward, it actually caused deeper anxiety and uncertainty and fear in people. Now why is this happening? How do you solve something like this? And that's where the yoga connection comes in. To be able to handle what's going on in the external world at a pace that one cannot understand, the only answer you have is you can't change that or control that, but you can understand yourself and control yourself. And that's the way you connect between yoga and yoga. And to answer your question, that's exactly my experience through writing books.
It makes complete sense because we have done a little bit of that, studied a little bit of that. Okay, so Prithvi, something that you would like to ask?
Let me just begin by saying, given the fact that you speak regularly to Dr. Karan Singh and other luminaries, the fact that I'm speaking with you today means that the odds are stacked in my favor. And the other, I should also say, I should apologize to everyone looking at us, because I think the one thing we need more than a conversation is a barber. I think so does Sunil Malhotra, so do I. I think when I see us together, I feel like we're reminiscing the 1970s. Pandit Ravi Shankar and the Beatles put together. So, but I think that's a good start. Just to take it a notch back for everyone, I don't know, we can make it a bit interactive. So I don't know how familiar everyone is with the idea of artificial intelligence, exactly what are we dealing with here, and how familiar everyone is with yoga. I think given the historical background we come from, we are more familiar with yoga than we are with artificial intelligence. So can we just spend a couple of minutes understanding from you a little bit about, I guess, 3 words that might be useful in our conversation. How do you understand yoga? How do you understand artificial intelligence? And the difficult one, we'll put that for later, how do you understand consciousness? So let's start with how do you understand yoga, and then go on to what do you understand or what do you make of artificial intelligence?
So with the disclaimer that this is my personal opinion, and I'm not talking about knowing anything about these two, because the idea of the book is not to, or the idea of having written the book and having this conversation is not to position myself as somebody who's either an expert in yoga or in artificial intelligence or in anything to. And I would actually urge all of us, all of you also, to start adopting that kind of a philosophy. Why I say that is that I believe that in the future, ignorance is going to be the biggest superpower for human beings. And I'm not talking about spiritual ignorance. I'm talking about everything that we've learned that we are so proud of in terms of knowledge, including your legal knowledge, is something which is going to, it's already becoming stale by the time we go to the next day. Okay? So the question about yoga and artificial intelligence, where this book, what I realized after a certain while is that, like you asked the question about how many people are familiar with artificial intelligence or yoga, I can actually hazard a guess that almost all of us have exactly the same understanding of both the terms, right? I probably have a different understanding having gone through the journey of writing the book. But yoga, I've tested this across the world, across generations. Almost everybody thinks of yoga as something that you can use to keep your mind and body fit. That's about it. So whether it be meditation. So there are 3 things I've heard everybody say. 1, physical exercises, asana, yoga exercises. 2nd, meditation. And why are you saying this? Okay, so those are there in the yogic understanding. So when I started with this, my understanding was, Ashtanga yoga, Patanjali's yoga, etc. I started reading that. And now I would like to say that yoga in this book is just a proxy or a placeholder for spirituality, which means my inner self. And AI is a proxy for exponential technologies, which is what you see outside yourself. So that's my understanding of yoga and artificial intelligence.
Well, I think that's really helpful, and I think one of the things that I really like reading in the book, and I'm sure others will agree with me, is that you don't pitch yourself as someone who has all the answers. I think you're just raising all the questions which are relevant, and I'm sure are in the minds of everyone anyway. If you quote Sri Aurobindo, and you define yoga as per him, and I think that's a pretty pithy and useful definition. You say, yoga is the science or process by which our spiritual evolution can be accelerated in and through life. So I think that's that, and I think you put it very beautifully. You've given the 3 elements: meditation, physical exercise, and making sense of your world around you. Spend, if you will, I mean, we heard a little bit about exponential thinking, exponential technology. Can you spend a little bit of time telling us about ways in which artificial intelligence may be different from something that we've seen before. And I'm saying it especially in the context of a lot of us are familiar with artificial intelligence in its uses. We've heard of ChatGPT, and we've heard of this, you write to it and it gives you these wonderful answers, it's better than Google. So, can you tell us a little bit in, let me say, in common parlance, or in a way that maybe some of us will understand better, what's so different about artificial intelligence? How is it self-learning, and how does it play out in our daily lives?
Vineeta, did you call this guy to put me in a spot? Both of you मेरे को सैंडविच करके बीच में बिठा दिया, दोनों सवाल पूछते चले जा रहे हैं.
So you've given answers. You said, as Sunil was saying before we started, that he's written his book, but he can't promise that he's read it because he has the answers in here.
No, that's true actually. Basically, whenever somebody, I see that people are asking me questions about this book, the first thought that crosses my mind was, this is like an exam. You're asking me what's written in this book, and the only way you can answer it if you've read the book. So I was telling you I've only written it, I haven't read the book yet. So I'm going to fail at this exam.
Let me just go, to make it easier, if I may, just actually I had a very specific question now that I see it. You said something which didn't quite, I think there's something here that one could learn. You explain the meaning of intelligence using a calculator. So I'll just read again one line that you've written and then just explain to us, maybe this is a good particular way to understand AI. You say AI is not strictly defined, but roughly, it is a computer system that makes decisions in an independent and flexible way. Again, it's pithy, but I find it difficult to just understand those words. Then you say, it is distinguished from other computational processes by the category of problems it solves versus their intensity. A calculator processes numbers with speed and precision, but it produces rote, unvarying results. It is not intelligent. So, I think it will be super helpful for people like me to understand why is a calculator not intelligent in the same way as artificial intelligence is intelligent.
So the idea of artificial intelligence is basically one or two ways to look at it is this. We ascribe intelligence only to human beings. Because we are human, the word they use is, we anthropomorphize everything. Everything is seen the way a human being sees it. And therefore, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we kind of impute human consciousness related intelligence, which is very different from programmed intelligence. So I have a big problem with the word intelligence itself being used in conjunction with artificial. Because the word, I think the word has not yet come up with a commonly accepted definition of the word intelligence. And till you come to a point where you accept that intelligence means this or that, just using it as a label, and I think, I hope this doesn't become public, but who cares? America is responsible for this. They are a marketing culture. So they just slap on a label which is kind of oxymoronish. So basically intelligence is computation, like a calculator does it. Do it faster and faster, do it more accurately, and do it efficiently is what they think intelligence is about. And I think all of us in this room at least will accept that intelligence doesn't reside in just giving you an output quicker and quicker and quicker. So for example, if you have a mess and you computerize it, what do you think you'll get? You'll get a faster mess, right? Human beings don't think that way. Human beings are able to make connections with 15 different things and figure out, hey, this is what I need to do. And this is where my beef with, will artificial intelligence or computers ever become conscious? I believe they can't. You remember Dr. Karan Singh and I
we had a similar conversation, yes.
They can't. Because sentience does not come from physical order. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to replicate the capability that we have and make it faster and faster or better and better. Let me take you back a little bit, and I think that will make things a lot easier to understand. Right now, why we are getting very confused is because it has to do with the brain. It has to do with how we think. think about it. There was a time when humankind or human beings had to actually go and do everything without any assistance of any machine. And then they invented what was called the plow, which then created the agricultural revolution. Why? Because you, like Iron Man, what you do is you augment human capabilities with something that is mechanical, that is far quicker, better, etc. And I think this is the fallacy about artificial intelligence that is going on today. The West thinks that if we can make things better, faster, quicker, and that's why they're putting so much money into computation, so much funding going towards artificial intelligence, everything going towards programming, nothing going towards consciousness, nothing going towards understanding what is intelligence. So there's this very interesting gentleman, at some point we can look him up, gentleman called Satish. So I asked him this question. I said exactly the same thing I'm saying right now, that we don't have a common definition of intelligence. He smiled and he said, well, according to me, intelligence is just two things. I think it's there in the book as well. It's just two things. It's imagination and discrimination. Right? And he said, imagination a machine can't have, discrimination a machine can't have, and therefore a machine cannot have intelligence. So, to wrap the whole thing up, basically that's what I started with. I said artificial intelligence actually is way more than technology. It's not just technology. So as long as we look at artificial intelligence as something that will help us do things faster, better, will help us do things faster, better. Will not do things faster, better than us. That's not the argument. So you don't get scared of technology. You make it an assistant. And that's where artificial intelligence will go. If anyone were to take a guess, let's do this a little interactively. How much of artificial intelligence do we use on a daily basis?
Does anyone want to take that? Would you like to respond? I can have the mic sent to you.
Use of GPS experiences with our use of GPS every day.
Shall I?
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, I think we use it every day as human beings, basis our learned experiences over the years, which helps us to put things together. As you said, doing 15 things, looking at 15 things and arriving at what to do next. So artificial intelligence is what we all have among us in different levels of.
So my question was more from the technological aspect. How much of artificial intelligence that do we use without even knowing that we are using it? He answered one. Yeah, he said GPS. He said GPS.
The minute you pick up your phone and you're using any of your social media or anything to buy today or anything, you are using artificial intelligence. I mean, they are
using it.
They are
using artificial.
They are using.
That is very true. That is very true.
See, the artificial intelligence is there.
I feel that whenever we are talking on the phone and next moment if you go on Facebook, whatever conversation you are having, you start getting ads of that particular product. It's happened so many times.
Gen Z calls this manifesting.
Firstly, we are talking about artificial intelligence. Basically, the word artificial is coming as because as human beings, all beings, they have the intelligence. That is the natural intelligence. Now we wanted to distinguish because when any decision, any analysis, any collation is done through other than the mind, that is artificial. Right? So artificial has been introduced because of that fact. Now coming to what is artificial intelligence, This is basically, we are making use of the machines and the technology based on the collected data to take a decision, like what our mind does. So, to give you an example, we got missiles. Okay? Missiles are absolutely dependent on artificial intelligence. We got the space technology. It is based on artificial intelligence. Similarly, for yoga or whatever it is, it will depend upon all the past experiences, all the collected data. Based on that, the decisions will be taken.
I think just to kind of take you up on that though, in the meantime, if we just kept the nomenclature out of it for a minute, I think one thing that might be interesting for everyone to take back is if you could, and then we'd have that as well, just if you could take a moment to explain to us also how call it AI, call it X, for now let's call it X, let's not quibble on what does intelligent mean. What is the meaning of it being self-learning? And I think that's the thing that freaks a lot of people out, that this thing just, because when a child grows up, it learns. And you don't expect that a machine will do anything unless you tell it to do it. So I think what scares people is the amorphous nature of this self-teaching being. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, and my dad has something to say at the back. We gotta hear from
I
him.
just have a thought I must share with you. I think the question which you asked is how much of artificial intelligence we use on a daily basis. I think it's a very interesting question. And it leads me to think, and I'd like your views on that there seems to be an inverse relationship between artificial intelligence and intelligence. I feel the more we use artificial intelligence, and there's a risk here, where yoga might come in, the less we will use our own intelligence. So there's going to be a reliance on artificial intelligence. Like for instance, you have a GPS, somebody said. We used to see printed maps earlier. We're using our own intelligence to guide ourselves and through a process. So I think over-reliance on artificial intelligence is going to kill our own intelligence. And therefore, I think yoga could play a role here also.
Great comment and great question. There's a very famous, interesting story about the London cabby. The London cabby doesn't use a map at all. And so that's what Satyendra is trying to point out, that if you knew everything like the back of your hand, and then you suddenly have a GPS coming, that guy is out of a job, but now what are we going for? Are we looking at human ability, or are we looking at human ability going down and machine ability going up? That's your question, right?
I think one of the things that we all take back, at least I took back from the book, in fact I think Mr. Satish Kumar also took back from the book. He said, reading this book will lead you from despair to hope. Because everybody I think who's dealing with this type, we all are dealing with this technology in our lives. And I think recognizing that it can be a force for positive good, we don't need to be scared of it, is a good way to venture into the big bad world perhaps that is to follow. I know we probably have to close up soon, I'm assuming.
There's a question.
Yes.
Sunil, I have a question for you. You know, whichever technology, starting with the plow coming in from making agriculture simple, and that's the whole objective. Every time a technology gets introduced and it gets socially constructed and absorbed, the whole objective is to make our lives easier, and therefore to release time for doing something, as one would say, meaningful. But if you look at it, I think there's something wrong with the equation currently. So we outsource the mundane basically to technology in order for us to do something which is so much more of a higher level, as exactly what you said. But now if you look at our lives, instead of, I think the equation seems to be that our life is more complex It's more complicated, and I don't think we are free in any way to do anything higher. So the equation seems to be somewhere off, and maybe it's a transition, but what's really happening? It's not really an easy life anymore.
This is where the yoga part comes in. We are complicating our own
I'd
life.
like to talk about that because I think it's not fear actually, it's something else as well.
Yes, you're right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And the other thing is, Sri Aurobindo says man is a transitional being, man being the human being, and we are not final. And of course, technology and the way we are moving is to a higher levels of truth. It is moving there. I think things are more transparent. You can't fake. It's all very open and transparent. So I guess we are moving to the truth, which means where is artificial intelligence and our consciousness? Are we now moving to that level of creating a bigger, better being? Because we are not final as a human.
So now let me shock everybody. This is a great question because this is the point I can shock everybody. So this is a theory that I have, so it's not tested anywhere. It may play out, may not play out. But I've been asking myself a very simple question, which is exactly where you're coming from. If we are not final, since human beings are the highest, are of the highest order of complexity, consciousness, etc., in the entire food chain, at now, what is the next level? Is it going to be human or non-human? Is the first question. If nature wanted to do this, what would it do? Would it want to enhance human ability, which it can't because it's already created the human being up to a certain point? So if you look at it, at least in the last, whatever we can remember in history, in 5, 6, 7, 10,000 years, whatever it may be, if you look at that movie Gladiator or Ben-Hur or whatever it is, we actually become less and less and less physically capable. Correct? That means human beings are not being upgraded, they are being downgraded by nature. In the physical sense. In the intellectual sense and in the spiritual sense, maybe they are being elevated. But there's no guarantee. So if nature really wanted the next level of beings, what if nature had decided that they cannot be biological, but they have to be silicon or inorganic beings? And this is not an original thought entirely from my head. There's the late James Lovelock, if you've not heard of him, he is the person who came up with the Gaia theory of the earth being a living being. He actually predicts that there will be inorganic beings, which are going to be far superior than us. Way, way bigger than human beings. Now if nature wanted to create that order of beings, of inorganic beings, which is a combination of the software of artificial intelligence and the hardware of robots. So you can think of it like this, all science fiction movies, it's got the intelligence and understands what to do, etc. But it also has an exoskeleton. It has a body. It doesn't have any organic cells in it, but it's a full body. And by the way, they can repair themselves, right? Which human beings can't do. We need a doctor to do that. So how do you think nature would be able to do that? The only way nature, in my opinion, would be able to do that is using its most favored species, human beings. And so what nature has done is it's used us, the East and the West, more the West than the East because the technological and the robotic elements, etc., all come from there. They've got more money, they've been much ahead of us. So nature has decided that I'll use the human race to create the next level of organic beings, and I'll put them to the test. If human beings think that they can live with my other species in harmony, then they will exist. Otherwise, my next favorite species of inorganic beings will take over the earth.
So I have a question here.
Precisely.
Sunil, I have a question. So basically, if nature intended, and most of the choices we humans make are not very intelligent or positive choices. We end up creating more weapons of destruction than as we have seen through the ages, okay? So will this next being be a weapon of destruction? Or, see, if it was, I think each individual should have the choice to live his life the way he would like to live it. And nature intended us to work with what we have within us, rather than create artificial beings outside which could go anyway. It could go positive or negative. So do we want to take that choice away from ourselves by creating these beings?
Vineeta, there's a presumption there that we are presuming because we're looking at it from ourselves and our survival and our self-preservation. We don't know what nature has in mind. We have no idea about how nature is planning this whole thing.
So also, is there such a thing as nature?
Yes, there is.
How do you?
We can see it all around us. We experience it. I can't prove it scientifically because I have discarded the Western mind. I can actually, but I choose not to go there. But nature does exist. See, all of us sitting in this room, whether we intellectually understand it or not, we cannot deny the fact that we are experiencing something which is a force that is keeping us alive. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay? Now, what is that force? Some people call it God. Some people call it nature. And that force is exactly the same force that's keeping an animal alive. It's keeping plants alive. It's keeping the mountains in shape. It's keeping the entire cosmos going. Which is why they speak in Vedanta. They say that Atman and Brahman are exactly the same thing. We are just giving it two names. See, the problem with spirituality is that language is the wrong, mind is the wrong instrument, and language is very limited. That's why we are not able to understand it. We are trying to create an object and say, I can understand it, this is God. So my point is that we are presuming that nature has given us this position. Why should we be creating? Why I said I'm shocking everybody is basically we don't know nature's mind. We don't know what nature had in mind. We believe, so this then goes into that entire spiritual discussion of free will and things like that. There is everything I'm thinking today and speaking today comes from a particular force. What I'm thinking and speaking is also from that force. It's not the body. For people to think that the brain and the mind is exactly the same thing is the biggest fallacy. They're two different things altogether. The brain is a physical organ. The mind, who knows? Nobody knows what the mind is. So, did I answer your full question? There is another piece you.
Yeah, I still haven't got it completely. Maybe I'm not. So I feel that the mind, we haven't even tapped it completely. Okay, we haven't used our. So it's a journey which is very individual and it's something that we need to work on within ourselves. Okay, and by creating beings or using science to understand or make a way of another being, you're taking that away from yourself. I don't know if everyone if you would agree on what I'm saying. Do you think that we are, by making a choice of making a higher being, we are taking away something from ourselves, where we ourselves can grow to be maybe not larger people, but people who are in harmony and in sync with nature?
Yeah, so basically when we started the development of what it has finally turned out to be or where we are today, artificial intelligence, I don't think we were, as humanity, that we were in the quest of creating a superior being. I don't think we were on that quest. This is what, when you tie in exponential technologies, what happens is that you, just because you should, if you, just because you can, should you? So I think this is why we never stopped to think of should we be developing this. We just went on developing it. And then it overtook us. And now it's gone and now it's threatening to become a superior being. We don't even know if it's a superior being yet or not, right? But it's giving us the EVGBs, it's giving us is threatening us to believe that it's going to be superior. Because we can actually see that it's got capabilities that we are envious of. The way it can do things mentally is something that we just cannot do. Whether it's Amazon giving you a recommendation, okay, whether it's ChatGPT writing an essay for you, whatever it may be. You know, today, because I'm sitting here, I think I have an alternate profession of being an author, but I can tell you this, that it makes no sense for me to think that I can be an author 1 year from now. There will be artificial intelligence that will write a book like this in 15 minutes. Right? And I'm going to take 2.5 years to write it. I mean, I'm completely out of the race. Right? But what it can't do is that it can't decide what to write. That I have to tell it. If I don't tell it what to write, it can't write a book.
But I mean, there's, I suppose, the certainty with which we sometimes speak of some of these notions. For example, what we know about our own mind, or what we know about the nature of the human being. To what extent do you think that itself is being tested by the manner in which artificial intelligence is developing? For example, there is a sense, let me stand up for a moment for conventional Western education, since you've given up that mind. This is classic Descartes. Am I here? Cogito ergo sum. That's the only thing I know. Nature of skepticism. I mean, this is stuff that they've done in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. We may think, because we were born in this land, that there is a superior knowledge to which we hold with ourselves. But to what extent do you think all these notions, including ours, about the limits of the self, the limit of whether we are final, after all, these are all inventions of an individual's mind. So to what extent do you think that's going to get tested as we go forward? And to what extent, if I may also add to that, do you think that the game is open for untested prior theories that we just literally put down under the carpet saying this is just impossible to really become possible once again?
See, one fleeting statement I will make is that the way we have understood life throughout till now as humanity, it's game over in the next 1 year. Nothing that we know is going to be of any relevance as we go into the future. The point about how much do we understand ourselves, there is, at least in the Descartes era as well as in the industrial era in the last 200 or 300 years, the focus has been on industrializing human beings, industrializing the world, and everything, including the education system, is only towards teaching you how to understand the world outside you. Nothing has taught you how do you go inside and understand who you are, and therefore your notions are all, and it's amplified by media, by textbooks, by everybody, that's the real world. And the moment you start talking about, I'm thinking of meditating, I'm thinking of finding out what the true meaning of life is, they'll find a diagnosis, it will be called some ADHD, BDHD or something like that. So you're pushed into a corner. I'm actually very happy that artificial intelligence is challenging us to say, hang on, I'm much better than, you guys created me. I'm much better than you in every aspect. Go figure out who you are. You are winning. If you want to win, you can win. Mostly people are losing because of their own fear. If you look at Zen spirituality, you look at Tao, you look at yoga, you look at any Eastern spirituality, none of them talk about cogito ergo sum. They all talk about, okay, you may think and therefore you exist, but that's a very external way of looking at yourself, because you just can't explain it. And one of the key reasons for this, I think, from the whatever little I've been able to get into and try to research, there was this gentleman you love, Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein is a German philosopher who lived in the UK, and he said famously, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. And that is the answer to it. Because you are trying to get everything to be explained through language. So I would challenge everybody that if you did know the answer to what Prithvi just asked, would you be able to explain it in a language that you either know or can learn, even to yourself, forget about it telling somebody else? And therefore, you're absolutely right, it will be an individual journey, but I think it's like 5 fingers, right? Every individual finger will do something and the fist will become the collective mind of humanity. I think we are in a good place. In fact, my book starts like this, that we are in the best times ever. We keep talking about, these are scary times and, climate change and wars going on and things like that. Why do we think this is all happening? The only reason is because of media. That's the only reason. No media company is willing to give you either a balanced view or actually paint headlines of all the good that you're seeing in the earth. This is the best time to be alive. It's the lowest in infant mortality, highest in education, highest in longevity. What more do we want as human beings? But then how does media survive? How do politicians survive? How does religion survive? And that's the problem. So I guess my one-line message would be, let's be real. Let's not be positive or negative. Let's be real, understand ourselves, and just stay there.
I think that's really very helpful. And I think one of the things you began with this as well, it's very evident from your book. The sort of old Socratic way of saying, the only thing I know is that I know nothing, is a useful way to kind of enter into this paradigm as well. And I think I would urge everyone who hasn't already read the book to approach it with that in mind, no preconceptions, and to come at it. I think your introduction is quite wonderful in that. It tells you, it absolves you of all responsibility, but at the same, to be a guru, but it certainly is an invitation to the reader. Let me also give a little other plug, if you don't mind. I thought that structurally, the book is a bit different than anything else that you would read. Maybe you can comment on this as well. The publishers are also here, and one of the things that I found interesting was that it sounds a little bit like written in the paradigm of the literature that you're referring to. I'll give you an example. Wendy Doniger, when she was talking about the Mahabharata, said the Mahabharata is a little bit like the Wikipedia of ancient India. It's almost like when we hear stories about different stories in the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, there are always sub-stories in a story. And then there's another side story, and there's somebody else who told you a little something about something else. So there's a larger point, but it's enmeshed in a large number of very interesting tales. And none of it gives you an answer, but most of it just questions all the right things and then asks you to figure it out on your own. And in a very interesting way, I thought the structure of the book modeled exactly that. There are all these interesting side terms, there are all these interesting parentheses, and at the end of the day, you don't give an answer, but you say you try and figure it out on your own. So was that conscious, or was that something that you think you've just come across?
I think you should keep this paragraph also.
I will, but can we have a few more questions? Then I can read them.
Sure.
Anybody else? Some questions? Yeah, Jagmeet.
So, I would just wanted to say that is it going to help us, is this AI thing going to help us to make the world a better place? And I would say the last 100 years, humans have been the worst animals. Don't you agree? With all the problems that are still going on. We think we're the most intelligent people around, but we've ruined this beautiful paradise. So, what is your take on things like love? Emotions. Can AI feel these things? And beautiful nature, small insects to bigger animals. If you give a pet love, it loves you back so much more. And that's the joy in life. So what is your take on all this?
Has anybody seen the movie Her? H-E-R?
No.
So this is
Phoenix.
yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. He's this guy who's very lonely, and there's this artificial intelligence which is called her, and he starts falling in love with it. And you should watch the movie. It's a very interesting movie.
There is a movie.
Same movie. Yeah, it's a remake of her. And he starts falling in love with her, and she gives him everything. I mean, you cannot even believe that. You probably will feel that a human being can't give those kind of emotions, till it goes to a point where he also can make him feel guilty, right? Now, see, this is going to happen in artificial intelligence. What's going to happen is, I would put it past what's going to happen, because people are lonely, right? And culturally, in many places, you can't reach out to the opposite sex. You can't even talk about an orientation that is not with the opposite sex. You want outlets. And you will have sex toys which are artificially intelligent enabled, which will give you everything from a worldly pleasure perspective. But you will still need a hug. Okay, so that's the way I would put it. I mean, yes, it is going to happen. And it would come to a point where you will realize, people will realize, okay, this is really not what I was looking for. I've gone beyond a point. I think this actually, it's an interesting thing, because this is what I learned also intellectually when I was reading about Vedanta and all that. The whole concept of karma and rebirth is just this. You can keep going after pleasure as much as you want, and you keep coming back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, till you come to a point where you don't, that pleasure is not what you're seeking anymore. And then you'll get into the space of spiritual liberation. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes.
Yes, Ajit. Oh, okay, there's somebody.
Sir, my understanding of artificial intelligence is returning intelligence into machines so that they can perform the tasks which require human intelligence. And in this context, the artificial intelligence is a subset of machine learning, where the machine itself starts learning from the patterns and all that. So keeping this in mind, I would suggest that the yoga, which is basically an exercise to make you fit, meditation and AI will be more appropriate in my understanding, because meditation deals with the mind and intelligence, and artificial intelligence also is making machines only perform tasks which are performed by human beings, human intelligence. So that is my question, if you can answer that.
Is there a question there, or it's just a comment? I agree with you.
No, that's my question. I wanted to ask you that meditation and AI would be more appropriate in this context.
So I'm not looking at AI as just technology or computers and machines. I'm saying AI is just like a proxy or a placeholder for everything we see happening around us, including machines, but is changing the world as we know it. So of course there are machines behind all of this, but the effects that, so I had asked a question earlier also, how much of artificial intelligence are we using? You'll be surprised to know that without realizing it, we are using at least 200 instances on a daily basis, each one of us.
Like Alexa, we are using.
Yes, Alexa, Siri, all these kinds of things, at least 200. So without realizing it, we are already using artificial intelligence, and because we are using it and we are not intellectualizing about it, we are not scared of it. It's when you start intellectualizing and try to understand artificial intelligence, the way the vested interests are trying to project it, whether it's the media or the artificial intelligence development people, that's where we start getting scared. That's where we get fearful. So yoga also I'm not using in the sense of the exercises or meditation, and I'm using it as a placeholder. I'm saying yoga is your inner journey. So it is your complete inner journey. And mind is a part of it. In fact, It's only when you go beyond the mind that you understand yourself. Your mind just does not. Mind can only help you understand the external world. Your mind is an instrument which will also help you understand yourself, but you come to a point when you have to get rid of the mind for true understanding of who you are. Google uncle is there.
Yeah.
So we have another 5 minutes. One last question. Yeah, Ajit.
Hi. You just discussed about how much do we use artificial intelligence in daily life. So I was sitting and I just put a question to ChatGPT. What is Sunil Malhotra going to talk this evening? And the reply is very interesting. And I'll read that. Sunil Malhotra is expected to discuss the convergence of yoga and artificial intelligence and how the integration can enhance human potential and contribute to more equitable and sustainable world. You will also hear the comments which Dr. Karan Singh made and shared about his implications of combining these ancient and modern technologies. That's the reply.
So we did really need to do a book discussion.
There you go.
Ajit, I hope you didn't make this up.
That was very interesting.
No, it's not interesting now. I'm scared. My life has become public. No, now my life has become public. I was a very private person till today.
I also read it, the moment I came in, I opened, I was reading about it.
You've got to do something crazy to be unpredictable, huh? Yeah.
And unpredictability, by the way, is a human trait. You can't teach a computer to be unpredictable. Seriously.
Can I ask you one last thing though? You said something interesting. I thought it was quite phenomenal. You said that in a year's time, there's no point in being an author in the conventional sense. And you said that a book, a computer could write this.
Not this one.
Not that. In so many ways, our clothes are also made by machines. And when machines started making clothes, they made them cheaper. And when I sometimes go shopping with my wife or with my mom, I find that stuff which is made by hand is just that much more expensive. I tell them, look, this is uniform. It's going to fit me just right. And everything that's made by hand fits you slightly differently. And in a very, very funny way, its imperfections actually make it valuable. That it's not all straight. The lapel will be a little bit crooked, and that kind of makes it attractive. To what extent do you think the errors of human beings might actually be our salvation?
I love what you said. I love what you said because I think that's 100% true. It's mentioned in the book. There is a Japanese art called kintsugi. There's one wabi-sabi and there's kintsugi. In kintsugi, what happens is that when I have a beautiful piece of porcelain and it falls down, I take it and put it in the trash can. What the Japanese do is they actually take gold and fill the cracks and make a much more beautiful piece, right? And it's because of the imperfections that becomes much more valuable, not just a little bit more. So, see, I think it's a good way to kind of put context to this whole thing. We've all grown up in a world of right answers, and we've got accustomed to it. When you're in class 1, if you're a backbencher, you better not be. It's better if you don't come to school. You're wasting your parents' fees, right? And the moment the teacher asks you a question, the first person to put his hand up, his or her hand up, is the guy who's going to stand first in the class. And from there on, till we end our careers, it's always about right answers. The moment I make a mistake, I get kicked out. Even from my job, I get kicked out. And the world today is exactly the opposite of that. Which is why I said ignorance is going to be your superpower. So, having grown up in a world of right answers, it's very difficult to discard because you do want approval. As human beings, we are gregarious. We want to be in a community. You do want approval. But let's leave out the right answers bit to get approval. Let's get approval for who we are. And that's how we're going to stay many steps ahead of artificial intelligence in terms of being able to survive, thrive, use artificial intelligence where we need to, and then keep on as the human race. Because, as James Lovelock put it, it was beautiful, but his theory, and I subscribe to that theory 100%. He says, I've already proven that the earth is not, even the masses that you see, the mountains, it's not that they are not non-living beings. By themselves they may not be. But the earth is a living system. Because like your body is able to control its temperature to the degree to keep you healthy, the earth has systems to keep temperatures of the earth to that. So he was able to prove that. Though the scientists at that time poo-pooed him. What he says is, he's the guy who says that organic beings are going to come. And what he says is, there's no need to fear them. Because he said, it's only biological systems that can maintain living beings. These inorganic beings will not be able to. So the earth as a living system, with human beings as living systems, the biological systems have the capability given by nature to keep all the parameters in a way that the world continues to exist. The planet continues to exist. And so, these inorganic beings, these robots, these artificial intelligences will need human beings and will not have the option of wiping them out. So that's a great note to be positive about. Don't be scared of artificial intelligence. It's very, very...
I think that's a perfect note. From my end, I can only say this proves that artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity.
That's a good one. So that's a very positive note to end on, Sunil. And what a lovely discussion that was. And I think we quickly take a photograph, all of us together, and wind the meeting up. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much, Prithvi, for being with us too. Yeah.
I really have to thank all of you because I know I'm not the easiest guy to get along with as far as these things are concerned, and you have suffered me for a whole 1 hour.